Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Home Care Forum podcast with your hosts, Sasha Guillaume and Amina Pora Canon. We are heading into conference season. Legislative session is rolling around, but meetings are being had. Amina, how are you this week?
I'm feeling the breeze of Jewish holidays. I think it's the last week before the chaos resumes. But even though it's been a bit quieter, there are some things we want to update our listeners when they resurface if they've taken this time to take a vacation. They may not be observant, but lots of people go away, especially in New York City, because they know these 3 weeks, September, October, tend to be quieter. So, Sasha, I'll let you hit the topics first, and then I'll jump in with a few updates that I've been going through with the clients who are around this week.
Great. Let's go to the PCATP application update. The application has gone from a paper application to an online application. So the updates include initial application, the personal aid training program, direct coordinator, nursing instructor application, and the program reapproval application. A new thing, the hybrid training program. Some of you may have already been approved or participated in the application that came out a few years back that allowed you to have a hybrid remote training program. There were some additional requirements for that. You had to have a few years of experience and fill out the form. Now that application is universally available, and the hybrid program is available online. I went on today to look at it. You cannot save the application, so you have to finish the application in one sitting. You are going to, in this application, need to upload some documents. So my suggestion would be to go through the paper application. If you have it, make sure you have all that information to upload. That's what I'm going to do. But I am excited to have the ability to do the remote or hybrid, as it states. The hybrid part is that the theory section of the training could be done remotely or with recorded videos, but the practical hands-on still has to be done in the office.
So just to be clear, this is for agencies that are approved under the Department of Health training program. This is not us,
Correct.
the department.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. I believe the Department of Education has its own,
Yes.
right. But yes, now new to the Department of Health. Correct.
Okay. Very good. Some interesting things. Many of you who are home care providers in New York State may know that extended MLTC sold to Hamaspic, not this summer, but I believe the summer before. And supposedly the state is just releasing this escrow amount to extended that they were holding back. You know, I've had people call the state and confirm whether there is indeed an escrow amount that is due to extended, and they have said no, there's nothing. But extended has defaulted on its payment obligations to a number of providers when they sold to Hamaspic, and there have been a number of litigations that were commenced not only against extended, but the individual owners of extended, some of which I am spearheading personally. For listeners who have perhaps been stuck in this situation, it may be of interest to know that extended is taking the position that this supposed escrow amount of millions and millions of dollars, and I will not disclose here how much, has been released. There is almost a half of that outstanding to agencies. And so Extended is still trying to negotiate a resolution to those debts and try to settle with a significant discount with those LICSAs that they have not settled with yet. If you have or had a contract with Extended and you did resolve things, I expect that you got paid anywhere from 90 to 75 cents on the dollar owed. That was kind of the range of what was ultimately settling, even though when the sale was announced initially, Extended came out and started offering 60 cents on the dollar. I seem to recall that was the first offer they had made to those LICSAs that they contracted with. Hey, we sold. If you don't want to be left out in the dark, take 60 cents on the dollar that we owe you. And actually, a number of them did agree to that. But there are still a number of them that didn't. The best settlement I heard of, as I said, was 90 cents on the dollar. To my knowledge, no one got 100% if they were stuck holding the bag at that point when Extended sold. That's Extended for you folks. Fidelis is the next on my list today of MLTCs that I want to talk about. So Fidelis has been going and cutting contracts in accordance with its services agreement with those providers, announcing that actually very, very long-standing partners were being cut. And under the contract with Fidelis or Centene, the plan does have the right to terminate providers for no cause, as long as adequate advance notice is provided. And so they've been clearing their provider ranks, I would say, over the last year. And I do work with a number of those providers who have had a contract with Fidelis well over a decade, who have been really left in the dark as to what seems to be a very unfair and arbitrary decision to terminate the contract, because these providers have hundreds of patients with Fidelis. And as everybody knows, those patients came to Fidelis because the Lixa was its marketer, right? So there is a vested stake in the well-being and healthcare of these patients with Fidelis. They are perhaps Fidelis members, but they are certainly the patients and the relationships of these agencies. And so in some cases, Fidelis hasn't even properly notified the agencies that it's terminating their contract. They moved the case, they assign a new aide to the patient. The new aide goes out to service the patient, and lo and behold, the former agency aide is there as well. I do have a few disputes with Fidelis about their ability to terminate these providers, because there does seem to be some discriminatory animus in who they're selecting. There's definitely a pattern of who they're terminating. So that is Fidelis and Centene for you folks. The last topic I want to touch on has to do with the CDPAP subcontractors. I believe we did talk about in one of our previous episodes about these poor subcontractors. And those of you who are listening who did not have, I am not even going to call it luck, but you did not have the temporary fortune of working with PPL as a subcontractor, you know that subcontractors were selected by the state and PPL to help in administration of this program. The viability of these subcontractors, folks, is very questionable. PPL is openly transitioning the work in-house, and so it's only a matter of time before they go away. Now, to make matters complicated, as was announced by New York State and PPL months ago, PPL will be requiring that anybody working with it as a subcontractor have no ownership interest in a Lixa or an MLTC, either an outright equity ownership through corporate interests, or family relationship. So you cannot just create a separate entity under a different EIN to be the subcontractor that your son, daughter, husband will run, okay? And then put the Lixa that's currently contracting with PPL as a subcontractor in another family member's name. Like, that can't be done. So the subcontractors are really in a quandary, because legally, really, this doesn't even make any sense. They're the ones that have a contract with PPL, and now PPL is telling them you have to divest yourself of any CDPAP interests, right? Or you can stay CDPAP, but your Lixa or your MLTC has to go under a different entity, and that entity cannot be owned by any of the people that own the Lixa or the MLTC. And it cannot be owned by any corporation that does either. This doesn't make any sense, frankly. And PPL doesn't really have any legitimate answers to this. This is entirely being pushed by the Department of Health. Ultimately, what has to remain under this construct is just purely FI agencies that are not Lixas, right? So if you were and still are just an FI, you're okay. But if you are a Lixa that is also providing or was providing FI services, you're stuck.
Now, this is two parts, right? Like, you have the divestiture
Hmm.
requirement, and then you have the we're bringing everything in-house. So, you know, maybe not now, but in the next few months or a year, you're going out of business regardless. So it would be more prudent to keep the Elixir and grow that. And it just, I guess the workaround is, or probably I see a lot of divorces coming in the future, and marriages by culture versus marriages by law. Like,
Well, listen, actually, I did have this conversation with someone. I said, "Hey, the woman you keep referring to as your spouse and your wife, is that a common law wife or like an actual wife?" You know,
right,
it's
right.
like, "Oh, damn it, it's an actual wife," you know?
Right. I mean, but we, yeah, we do know, there are people in the industry. There are people everywhere that take advantage of the I get married back home and don't register it here to get to take advantage of certain benefits.
Yep.
This might just be one of those instances. I'm not telling you what to do. I don't know if it would be considered some type of fraud to do that. Consult your attorney. We don't give, especially I don't give any legal advice here on this podcast. But yeah, I'm sure people are trying to figure a way around it. And it's a tough one. Either way, I don't see the benefit on going down this path of keeping the city path. And it's unfortunate, right? Because you were suckered into helping PPL establish itself, and now they're kicking you to the curb, right? Like if you ever get into the franchise business, there's language in there where the franchisor can just buy you out, right? In the future. So you technically are just building out
Mm.
their network. They can call that in at any time. So similar, and for those who are subcontractors, uh, sorry to hear that they're actually going to go through with this. I thought this was going to be one of those things that they didn't implement.
PPL has been non-responsive to questions about this because there are definitely questions about the scope of the family restriction. You know, there's a cousin. Is a cousin out, right? Can I find some long lost cousin who doesn't speak any word of English and is probably not going to stab me in the back on this later on? But nothing from PPL on this. They are, however, granting extensions. So a lot of agencies are obviously frantically scrambling to figure out how they restructure this. So if you do need an extension, seek it out. And then not to forget, nonprofits have these issues as well. They are even in more of a bind about how they peel off this segment of their business. That is definitely something that is going to evolve over the next few weeks. The state is looking to get this done by the end of the year with all of the extensions is granted. All right, folks, that's all for us this week. I hope you found the information informative, and make sure you tune in, hit subscribe, and follow to stay on top of all of these wonderful, wonderful podcast episodes.
Great. Thank you, Amina. This has been the Home Care Forum podcast with your host, Sasha Guillaume and Amina Pora Canon. Have a good one.